Welcome to Bulgaria Now, the bi-weekly show here in Bulgaria. And before I introduce today's guest, Xena Sorensen, I'm going to just thank today's sponsor, IDOS, AIDOS, IDOS.bg and virtualassistants.bg, accountants and lawyers and assistants here in Bulgaria. Thank you very much for their sponsorship. Okay, so here we are in a park in Plovdiv. Xena, welcome to the show. How are you doing today?
I'm good, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Most welcome, and thank you for contacting me because it's really great to have proactive people who want to come on the show, and you're involved in something very close to my heart. But before we talk about that, a little bit about you, because you're Danish.
Yes, I'm from Denmark, and I've lived in Bulgaria in Plovdiv for about 2.5 years.
And it's a reverse story, but the same story, isn't it? Boyfriend?
Yes, exactly. I have a Bulgarian partner, we met abroad, and then I moved here to be with him.
Before we met today, we had a little brief chat, and you mentioned your studies that took you a great interest in sustainable tourism. And today, the topic of the show is actually wine and sustainable tourism and rural tourism. But you actually studied some of this, didn't you?
I did, yes. My bachelor's degree is in international hospitality management, and I spent about 10 years or so in hotels. And then I specialized in my master's in environmental management and policy because I was interested in sustainable tourism.
Here we are in Bulgaria. We've got rural villages almost devoid of people, aren't there? In your view, how can sustainable tourism help these rural areas?
Well, it can definitely help rural economies grow. It could bring jobs and prosperity to the people, and hopefully supply jobs. So you don't see this huge. You don't see all these people leaving the villages to go into the cities or to go abroad. So.
Yeah, indeed, and as you were saying earlier, many people are on the coast or in Banska, where I spend all my time in the winter. That sort of winter and then very summer tourism, but the bits in between, and obviously all of the summer, really in many respects the best bit is the countryside, isn't it, of Bulgaria? This is where I think we're all passionate about.
Definitely, there's a lot of talk about seasonality in tourism in Bulgaria, and what you can achieve with rural tourism, cultural tourism, and other types of alternative types of tourism is getting people to come visit in those off seasons, such as spring and fall.
Okay, so you've set up a company. You've been working for a travel company for some time, but now you've set up your own business to bring, I guess, mainly foreigners to Bulgaria to discover the countryside and the wonderful wines here in Bulgaria.
Yes, with my partner, I founded a company called Bulgaria Wine Tours, and we launched in 2015, so we're quite young, and we focus on wine and food tourism.
Okay, so what I like to do when people have a business is really talk through how the typical itinerary may go. I fly into Sofia, and then what happens?
So many things can happen. In terms of itineraries, there are many possibilities. Bulgaria has more or less 5 large wine regions, so you could go into any one of those 5. For example, if you do arrive in Sofia, it would be one of the itineraries could be to go down south to the Melnik area. That would be a great wine area. Some great things to discover in that region in terms of culture, food, wine, and nature. Another possibility could be to come to Plovdiv and sort of do the Rhodope mountain area. And then you could also go north. So there's many possibilities.
Okay, so we're recording this in a park in Plovdiv, which is my favourite city in Bulgaria by far. Just not that far away. I mean, take an hour and a half sort of circumference around Plovdiv. You've got some amazing wineries, haven't you? And maybe you can just give a feeling for, if I came on one of your tours, what to expect.
Yes, so Plovdiv has an excellent position because it's kind of in the center of what we call the Thracian Valley. And so not far from Plovdiv, you'll find many wineries. And what you could expect is a large variety of wineries. You could have small ones, medium-sized ones, and even the very, very large ones. And another thing about the Plovdiv region and the Rodopi region is that not far from wineries you are bound to find something interesting to see in terms of cultural. So you have monasteries, churches, ruins, etc. So you can achieve a really great balance of wine, food, culture, and then of course, once you're around Plovdiv, you should definitely also spend a day in Plovdiv just discovering the town.
Absolutely can't agree with you more on that front. Just there's everything going on here, in my opinion. It's just vibrant. Right now, of course, here in end of September, we've got holidays. Talking of wineries, do you want to talk about any specific wineries that you like and specific wines that you find that people enjoy?
Well, there are so many wineries, so it's hard to single out just a few, and there's just so many good ones. Bulgaria has up towards 300 wineries actually registered now. We're not talking about homemade wine, we're talking about wineries that are registered. But what I would say is mostly interesting is perhaps the grape varieties that are native to certain areas. And so obviously people may know Mavrud, and Mavrud is very local to this region. So instead of perhaps singling out wineries, I would say, definitely take the chance to try Mavrud wines or another local variety, Rubin. Yes. Try the Rubin wines too.
Oh, great tip. And in fact, I really like the new style Mavruds they're doing, the lighter styles. I don't know whether you've tried those, because it's typically quite a heavy style, but some of the more modern ones. Now, I noticed on your tour you go to Bratanov winery, and they do that wonderful indigenous grape Tamyanka, and I always recommend that wine to everyone. It's getting reasonably widely available now, isn't it? And I think that's just one of the wonderful discoveries about going around vineyards, is to have this wine and go, gosh, it doesn't quite taste like anything else, but it's really well made, well balanced wine with not too much acidity but enough acidity and that sort of thing.
Definitely. I mean, on our tour so far, the best feedback we get from our guests is definitely the fact that they've never tried these wines before. They try them here and they are, surprised almost, and they're just so pleased and they love them. So yeah, local grape varieties are definitely a big hit.
Okay, hold that thought on local grape varieties and local vineyards, and we're going to come back to that. But I'm just going to mention today's sponsor, IDOS, AIDOS, idos.bg. Now, once again, I'd like to thank them for sponsoring the show, because A, it makes it all possible, but secondly, I've been using them personally for over 5 years now, and have many of my friends who run businesses. Often when you come to Bulgaria, you're setting up, you have to set up a business, you've got all that sort of setting up a company type of thing, but then you've got the ongoing work. You could pick your friend's uncle, aunt, or this sort of thing, and that's all fine, but they're often one-person bands, and when you get busy and you need things done instantly, and if they're on holiday, you cannot get that work done. So IDOS have 20 people in their team, so I find it wonderful that they actually can do things at virtually any time of day. They work very late sometimes. If your immediate point of contact's on holiday, things get automatically relayed to the next person to do the work. Mention their other relatively new company called virtualassistance.vg. So if you're looking to buy a property, you need things translated, you need inspections, you need a guide to do various things here in Bulgaria, and by gosh, I recommend that. So many people come here, basically have a haircut. It's easy to lose money, easy to be taken advantage of, and the smart people pay for proper advice. I cannot stress this enough. So whatever you do, and of course I'm recommending IDOS, but whatever you do get professional advice from someone you can trust. Okay, thank you guys for sponsoring the show. Just to remind you, we've got Xena. We're talking about rural tourism, wine tourism, and sustainable tourism, and we were just talking about grape varieties. I've just had a thought. In fact, maybe tomorrow I'm off there, because one of my things I love doing is paragliding. I go to Sopot. Near there, of course, is Chateau Kopsa. And, one of the things, you go to the winery, and I often go to that particular winery because they have limited edition wines that are almost being made for the owner. And they are a bargain, I can tell you. There's one there I like. Again, talking about grape varieties, not totally indigenous, but you don't get it so much. It's called Misket, Misket, K-E-T. Yeah, Misket. I really like their Misket, as well as their Sauvignon Blanc and their wonderful Merlot. I mean, Christ, I bought this stuff and there's been no label on the bottle. It's that sort of fresh and, what's the word, uncommercialised, which is kind of cute. But in this region, you can go to many wineries. I mean, actually, it's an interesting fact that someone told me. At one stage, Bulgaria produced, as a country, more wine than any other European country.
Yes, during I'd say the 80s, when the changes had not yet come to this country, they were one of the biggest exporters in, I think it's the world. Yeah. They once upon a time were huge producers.
Yeah, and of course, when the changes happened, and in 1989 and so forth, the wine was not of sufficient quality, and the exports dried up. And of course, then all the investment came in, particularly in I think 2002, back in when 2015, 14. A lot of EU money has gone into wineries, and I think people surprised sometimes to see such modern winemaking facilities here.
I'm not sure if they're surprised. No. They definitely appreciate it because, the small boutique-style wineries that have been built around the 2007 period when Bulgaria entered the EU are, modern facilities. Usually they've even had the wine tourism aspect was something that they decided to do before even building the actual winery facilities. So they'll often have wonderful tasting rooms. Everything's just a little bit more modern and organized there for wine tourism, that is.
That's right. And in your tour, I know you stay in tell me where you stay in it looks like a delightful location, the Rhodope, one of the places you stay.
So on one of our itineraries, which is in the eastern Rhodopes, we stay at a wild farm. It's a small little farm and also an eco lodge. It's actually a certified green lodge. Yeah, and it's a wonderful experience, very authentic. The owners are there. You get to eat local food that's usually sourced from the area. It's a tiny village. The nature's beautiful. So it's a very authentic experience. It's true. I mean, the fruits and vegetables are definitely something you just have to try. It's completely different than what we get in Western and Northern Europe. And, my partner always says to people, you haven't tried a real tomato, because the Bulgarian tomatoes here, I mean, the taste is just completely different.
Let's get to know you a little bit better. You mentioned you met your boyfriend in Copenhagen, in Denmark? No, sorry, where did you say?
We met in Sweden.
Sorry.
We met in Sweden in 2012. We were both studying environmental management and policy.
Okay. So you're all settled here now in Bulgaria, of course. When you're not working hard on this new business, what are your passions?
My cat. Well, yeah, wine, food, my friends, my cat. I like to dance. I go to Zumba. So yeah, I like to hang out with my friends here in Plovdiv.
Cool. So it's a cool thing. Zumba classes here in Plovdiv, yeah?
Yes.
Very nice. Okay. If you were trying to sum up Bulgaria in 10 words or less, how would you do that? What would you say?
It's an interesting question because speaking of expats, I've been an expat for most of my life. I've lived in 10 countries all around the world. I spent 6 years in the Middle East. So I have a lot of experience with living in countries that are not my own. I was an expat child. I didn't grow up in my own country, speak multiple languages. So I don't have a deep connection to any one country, but I have to say, out of all of them, of course I have some favorites out of the 10, but out of all of them, this place is the most real. It can be hard sometimes, but I have to say that I think I've enjoyed it the most here, because life is just so much more relaxed and laid back compared to some other countries that I've lived in. So I just really appreciate that.
Okay, so the child, you're an expat child. This is interesting. So you don't really feel 100% affiliated with your country that you were actually born in, no?
No, not at all, because I was born in Denmark, but then we left when I was under a year old, and then I went back when I was 10. and I lived there until I was 18, and then I left, and I haven't been back since. Living, that is. Yeah.
But there must be countries that you've been where you've enjoyed it for other reasons.
Yes. So I've lived in, well, just to give an example, I lived in Dubai for many years, which is, the complete opposite. It's just so different comparing it to Bulgaria. But life there was very high paced. You worked a lot. Yeah, it was very flashy. You need money to have fun there. While here, I can go out and have a beer and a meal for just a few leva and just have the greatest time in the middle of the week, And that's something that I just really appreciate, because I've lived in so many countries where that's just not possible, including my own in Denmark. As you know, it's just so expensive, so you don't exactly go out for a quick meal or grab a quick beer with your friends in the middle of the week. That's just not something that people usually do. So I definitely enjoy that aspect, the social aspect of Bulgaria. I definitely enjoy.
Great point. I think that's absolutely resonating with me. I mean, I never used to be able to go out as much as I think I do here in Bulgaria, although I love cooking, so I spend a lot of my time cooking, and I do go out more. And as you say, you grab a quick lunch, it's 5 leva, it's all affordable, and I think that adds a bit of something extra to it all somehow, doesn't it?
Definitely. That's something I really appreciate, and that's why in some aspects, even though Dubai was great when I was sort of a little younger than I am now, I have to say I prefer this type of lifestyle more. So yeah, it's challenging to live here. I think I'm lucky I have a Bulgarian partner who's been able to help me sort of through the bureaucracy, etc., that goes with living here. And sometimes the language barrier can be a hassle, etc. But other than that, I think the positive things outweigh the negative things.
Okay, and I think the positive things are mounting up right now, particularly here in Plovdiv, where I keep on going on about this, and regular listeners will be bored of me talking about Plovdiv. And we did a show, I think it's episode 44, a bit of a guide to Plovdiv, groovy and livable, we call it, with Clive. I'm just wondering, we were talking about rural tourism, and I want to just go back to that, because I think this is the thing that really hits people who love the countryside, the mountains, is how do you think this can be developed? What in an ideal world, should the government be doing anything? Should the people be doing something? Is there any solutions to this? What are your thoughts? What are they doing right? What are they doing wrong, perhaps? Many questions there. I'm sorry, you can answer whichever one you want.
The general infrastructure is there, meaning that you do have lovely guest houses, etc., places to stay. You do, of course, have many things to see and many things to do. So perhaps it's just a matter of more marketing and promotion. So just creating more awareness so that people know that this exists. These wine tours that I do in Bulgaria, a lot of people say things like, well, first of all, sometimes they're surprised by the quality of Bulgarian wine. Some are, some aren't. They're just amazed to see that Bulgarian has such excellent wines, such excellent food, at such excellently affordable prices. And there's just not a lot of packages, holiday packages, etc., for them to find, so they don't even know about it. So it's very much a matter of marketing as well.
I agree totally. It's there. It needs to be presented in the right way. It needs to access those people who would absolutely love it. In fact, I know so many people who have actually come over as friends, and I've shown them a little bit of the rural tourism, the wineries and stuff, and they're blown away. They say, I mean, for example, I'm lucky enough many years ago being to Napa Valley and stayed in a hotel and done the wine tasting. I prefer it here in Bulgaria. It is better. I assure you, dear listener, it is better here in Bulgaria. I am not biased. I would tell you absolutely if it was better in San Francisco. It's good. In Napa Valley. It's good there, but it's better here. It's a really lovely experience, and I'm ignoring the costs as well for a second because you're going to be under half the costs here, and they really can mount up when you buy wine in America, I can tell you. But the packaging of the tourism is something that I really, really wish you good luck on, and get more people over here to enjoy your tours. Get out there, experience the great food, because it's not just about the wine, it's the whole experience, isn't it? The whole everything.
It is definitely everything, and just kind of going back to Napa Valley, and I've done a couple of wine tours myself, but they were in Italy and Spain. One thing that I would highlight about Bulgaria is that, when you go out to the wineries, you will be welcomed inside as if you're a long lost friend. That's just kind of one of the things you usually experience. Also, either the owner or the winemaker will take the time to sit down and talk. The pourings are very generous, as you know. So it's not in certain other countries where they'll give you just a small sip of different wines. The pourings are very generous. They take the time to talk to you. Again, prices are affordable, and also the wines, when you buy wines from a wine cellar, they're usually at very, very good prices when you're buying straight from the cellar door. And I wanted to highlight something you said earlier, which is when you go to wineries here in Bulgaria that are quite small, they will have limited series of wines. So you'll get really interesting wines. Perhaps there's only a barrel or two, and you can buy them. And so you can say, well, I'm one out of just a few thousand people who has this wine, so you can, and sometimes the wines are only sold at the cellar, so it's quite exclusive and interesting. So those were just a few points I wanted to highlight about going to a winery in Bulgaria compared to other places.
Yeah, absolutely, and I'm glad you picked up on the limited edition points, because I almost always buy limited edition wines. I think they're fantastic value. Yeah, I always feel, as you say, it's just often one barrel can be 700 bottles. I can't remember how many bottles. It depends on the size of the barrel, of course. But there's some very limited quantities of wines where you can tell it's really being done for the owner of the owner of the vineyard or the winery. Talking of wine news, we've got Divino Taste coming up in Sofia in November. I don't know. What date is it? Do you know?
No, I don't know that.
Okay, I'll put that in the show notes. I'm going to ask Xena Sorensen to give the name of your website again.
So it's www.bulgariawinetours.com.
And how can they get in contact? Do you have an email address as well?
Yes, they can contact us through the website or on our email, which is info@bulgariawinetours.com. They can contact us through Facebook, through Twitter, through Instagram, and all that.
All the socials, that's great. Okay, well, we're going to wrap up soon, but I'm just going to thank once again today's sponsor, IDOS, AIDOS, IDOS.BG, accountants and legal advice here in Bulgaria. They're based in Sofia, actually, and virtualassistants.bg. Finally, if you do like the show, then share with friends. If you don't, that's fine. Tell me what you don't like about it. Tell me what you do like about it. Drop me a line or make comments. You can find this show in iTunes and in SoundCloud, Stitcher, TuneIn Radio, and all the podcast catchers out there. You can find it, and your support is really, really much appreciated. If you really love the show so much, then you can actually donate using Bitcoin or Ethereum. And watch out for another crypto show coming up very soon. Apart from wine, let's go and have a glass of wine, shall we?
Let's do it.
Okay, let's do it. And Xena, thank you so much for coming on the show. This is Xena Sorensen. Thank you so much. You've been wonderful.
Thank you very much for having me, Lance.
Thanks for listening, and goodbye.